Today's episode is sponsored by NordPass Business, a solution that combines a password manager, access manager, and online threat detector all into one tool. First, NordPass allows you to easily and securely store, manage, and share passwords, passkeys, credit card details, and other sensitive information. Beyond that, it offers a range of features designed to monitor data breaches and identify weak, old, or reused passwords within an organization. NordPass also enables you to seamlessly control who has access to what company resources, helping you make sure that no outsiders can take a peek. You can now enjoy 3 months of NordPass Business for free. Just head over to www.nordpass.com/Swisspreneur and use the code Swisspreneur.
A lot of people, especially who are like diehard meat eaters, they find this idea a little bit freaky. What do you have to say to them, when they're having these doubts?
The freaky part, if it's in a positive way, then it's a good thing. Usually this freaky is more related to fear. And fear often comes from the fact that people don't know how it's produced.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to follow the podcast and leave a rating. And now, here's your host, Ansuya.
Welcome, Nicole, to the Swisspreneur podcast. So happy to have you here.
Thanks a lot for welcoming me here.
So Nicole is the co-founder and CTO at Sallea, a biotech startup adding third dimension to cells to enable large-scale cultivation of clean, grown fish and meat. Nicole, you spent 11 years studying at ETH and started Sallea straight after that. Did it ever occur to you to go into academia?
Yeah, towards the end of my PhD, I was thinking a lot in what direction I'm going to be drawn. And academia was absolutely one option on the plate. I think in the end, what drew me more to entrepreneurship was the collaborative aspects and actually to be closer to an end product. Whereas in academia, you might be more focused also on the fundamentals and often also single features a bit.
So in that 11-year period, while you were doing a lot of research, you really wanted to see a tangible product come out of it. That was kind of where your feelings were developing.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I've been working on the technology since 2016. And I think it would also have been a pity to just put everything we developed into a drawer and forget about it. So I was really keen to pushing the boundaries even further and have an impact in the end with the technology.
That makes a lot of sense. Did you have any other experience before that with doing anything entrepreneurial?
Not too much, but there have been a lot of startups coming out of our group, and I've been in contact a lot with them. I talked to them about their experience, about their learnings, and we're still doing that and learning from them, which is a super cool opportunity for us as well.
Yeah, that's a great ecosystem to be in. So.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And then in November of 2023, Sallea was founded. So you're 3 co-founders, yourself, Simona Fehlmann, and Anna Binter. So where did you guys meet each other?
Yeah. So Simona joined me for her master thesis towards the end of my own PhD. And she also helped me a lot to develop the technology that we're now using with Sallea. And we quite soon realized that we work well together and at the same time that we complement each other with our skill sets. And at the time, I was also looking for a co-founder because starting a startup as a single founder is really tricky. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I like to work in teams. And then towards the end of her master thesis, she was convinced that it's also a cool path for her to go. And that's how we kickstarted Sallea. And then Anna, she joined last November when we incorporated the company. We realized that we were missing a bit the business aspects. And Anna, she did Matura with Simona 10 years ago. And they occasionally met in the train and realized that they have the same drive. And that's how we onboarded Anna to have a super complementary team now.
And what are the roles that each of you are playing in the team?
So Simona, she is the CEO. So she's making sure that everything runs smoothly into each other. Anna, she's the CO. So she's making sure also financial aspects, HR. So a lot of also operations internally. And myself, I'm on the tech side. So I'm the CTO and making sure that the tech is up on speed.
Great. So we're talking also to the right person because we really want to understand as well your technology today. So tell us a bit also about the ideation process for Sallea. Why was there this concern with our diet's impact on the environment specifically?
So I guess there are two parts of that. So how we ended up in food tech. So initially the technology was developed for tissue engineering, but it's quite usual for a material science startup that there are many different applications you can go into. Usually develop a material or a process which can have a lot of different applications. So in the beginning of Sallea, for us, it was very important to understand the needs of the different applications, the different ecosystems we could dive into. And we saw the biggest need in food science and cultivated meat. For one, on ecological side, but also on an economical scale, which is important for the startup as well, absolutely. So I think that's how we got into that. Food science in general and how we can feed the world in a sustainable way. It's something that also excites me on a personal level. So I think that it was a great fit in the end.
Yeah, very much needed in today's time. I mean, we obviously hear and read a lot about this, but just to enlighten our listeners a bit more about it, could you please tell us the role that current livestock and fishing practices are playing in the climate crisis?
Yeah, absolutely. I think overall, we always underestimate how many resources livestock farming take up.
Yeah.
So they're responsible for about 37% of the global emissions by 2030. And also we occupy 77% of our agricultural land just to grow and feed animals. So that's not just the place they need to grow on, but also to produce all the food they need. And that comes about because animals are very bad transformers. So if you feed a cow with 100 grams of proteins, you will only get 4 grams of protein out in the end.
Yeah.
So very ineffective transition or transformation of the ingredients and of the macronutrients as well.
That is a very insightful information that I have not read before. So thanks for sharing that. And then why did you feel that, cultivated clean meat and fish would be a good solution here?
So there is a lot of different plant-based options around, and they are super valuable. And I think we see also more and more people being very excited, for example, about planted, which is amazing to see. But quite often we also get the feedback of people who really like the taste, for example, of meat, that they are still drawn to eating conventional meat because they just the plant-based, they're not quite there with the taste. Or like they're still different in terms of taste. It's not the same. Yeah. They're amazing in taste, but just different. And with the clean meat, you really have the opportunity to grow real meat. So it's also cells, also from the same animal, and you really get to the taste that you know from conventional meat.
And how do you get to also then producing this at a massive scale?
So this is the challenge at the moment that the industry is facing. The industry has proven the point that cultivated meat or the production of cultivated meat as such is possible, mainly making processed meats, meaning sausages, chicken nuggets, and so on. And now the challenge is to get that up to scale. And one of the challenges is that the industry depends on a whole value chain, so from bioreactors to cultivation media and so on. And all of these partners in this value chain need to get the prices down in order for it to be scalable and bring the costs down. And that's the challenges, but also the opportunity the whole industry is facing at the moment. It also provides opportunity for startups like Sallea to come in to actually help driving the prices down or bringing the acceptable prices of the end products up.
How much, let's say, infrastructure is needed to set up such facility to be able to cultivate this kinds of meats? Like if you compare that to, factories that are doing processed foods and so on.
I think it's a very, very similar to what you're used to in food science. In a sense, for example, if you think about the beer brewing process. Yeah. So you also have a big steel tank. You also have some tiny little things. I mean, in one it's cells, in the other it's some microbes. But it's always a big steel tank where you grow them in and they produce something else to be eaten. And I think in that sense, it's something we know. It's a bit different in terms of sterility and how these cells have to be controlled. So there needs to be some extra effort to get there. But overall, the processing, the scale of the processing is something we know from food science. Yeah.
And this methodology that you've come up with, is this also very unique compared to the other facilities that are also cultivating meats? Or is it similar? And
So we are a B2B provider in the ecosystem. We are making scaffolds. These are kind of porous structures where the cells can grow into 3 dimensions to actually grow into something like a steak or a fish fillet. So we are not growing the cells in the end ourselves. That's what our customers do. I think what we do very different to what's on the market is that we do enable these whole cuts. At the moment, what you find on the market are usually processed meats, such as chicken nuggets or sausages. Yeah. Some companies, they do have technologies to make very thin steaks, but it's difficult to go to large cross sections. And with our scaffolds, we can actually do that.
Very cool. I mean, in reality, a lot of people, especially who are like diehard meat eaters, they find this idea a little bit freaky. What do you have to say to them, when they're having these doubts, especially when it comes to nutritional value and taste?
Yeah, I think like the freaky part, if it's in a positive way, then it's a good thing. Yeah. Usually this freaky is more related to fear. Yeah. And fear often comes from the fact that people don't know how it's produced. So we very much see it as our task to educate the population and the people to explain them what we actually do and how these things grow. And from experience, if we do that in a correct way, usually people are very excited and open also to try it, and we can take away a bit of that fear.
This episode was brought to you by Google Cloud, a partner that needs no introduction. What you might not have heard of, though, is that Google offers a Google for Startups cloud program where they give you access to startup experts, technical training, business support, and cover your Google Cloud costs up to $200,000 for 2 years, or even $350,000 if you're an AI startup. Scale your startup faster and smarter with Google Cloud. Head over to goo.gle/Swisspreneur.
I mean, what is also interesting that we read on your website is that the customers you have can actually predefine the texture, the nutritional value, taste, and other key attributes of the end product. So how is that possible? And then it basically means like every customer you have could end up with a unique product of their own, which is really cool. But just want to learn more about the process.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, one of the challenges is in the industry is to scale and to grow massive amounts of sales in a short time. Mm-hmm. So we are going an approach, or the whole industry is heading towards an approach of hybrid products. So that's a mixture between plant-based proteins or materials mixed with cell mass. So you combine nutritional value and texture of the plant-based products with especially the taste of the cells. So with our scaffolds, we bring in the nutritional value and the texture and so on from these plants. So they're made from plant-based proteins. And then we bring in a certain percentage of cells into the scaffolds to add the very specific taste of meat. So by that, we can combine the two to have a really cool product in the end. Mm-hmm. And on our scaffold side, we can tune the texture, for example, of the scaffolds, but also the nutritional value, depending on what kind of proteins we mix or what kind of additives we add to the scaffold.
I had also read a long time back that the taste in particular of meat comes from this heme compound, right? That the blood that we know from hemoglobin, the blood compound. Is that a part of it, like that you use for these cells, or like how do you get to that taste?
Yeah, the taste is very specific to the cells that are being grown. So you can think of the bioreactor as mimicking like the cow itself. So the cells, they swim in a nutritious solution where they get everything they need to grow and to become a real grown-up muscle cell, let's say, for example. Yeah. So they get the nutrients from there. So it's not too much different to what happens actually in the animal itself. So we don't have blood itself, but all the different taste molecules that you get from the cells, that's also something our customers have in their process. So that's how you end up with the specific tasting. Yeah.
And do you have like some known customers that are using your scaffolds that you can share, or maybe I want to go and try one of your products now.
Yeah, at the moment we
market.
cannot share. We do have
Okay.
first customers who are trying our scaffolds, which is super exciting for us.
Yes.
But there is an Israeli company, LF Farms. They're waiting for regulatory approval here in Switzerland.
Okay.
So fingers crossed that they will be successful and we get to taste cultivated meat also in Switzerland soon.
I will be looking forward to see that happen and then try it out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Me as well.
Awesome. So tell us also a bit about how does your company go to market? Does it make sense for you to partner like companies like, let's say, Planted, since you mentioned that? And how does the scaffold gets integrated into those companies' process?
Yeah. So we usually differentiate between customers and partners. So it's a big ecosystem and different players need to play together in order to build up the whole value chain. So the customers are really the people that will use our scaffolds to grow meat or fish in their own bioreactors. Whereas we partner up also with other players in the ecosystem to make sure that our scaffolds integrate well into the whole value chain. So for example, we're partnering up with bioreactor companies to design inserts into bioreactors or methods on how we can successfully do dynamic cultivation on the scaffolds. So on that side, also Planted is really excited, and I'm sure we can learn a lot from them in terms of how we can integrate texture into a plant-based product, because in the end, our scaffolds are plant-based, and we need to get the texture right there.
So with the partners, basically, is whom you would work, and then the customers get access to the scaffolds from the partners, like, for example, we're providing the bioreactors. And it's not like that you have to go and set it up at the customer's factory.
Yeah, we try to lower the hurdles for our customers as much as we can. And by collaborating with bioreactor companies, for example, we come up with a full solution, with a full plug-and-play solution for our customers. So we really try to make it as easy that they have a protocol, that they have tools, that they just need to run it and it works. That said, every company, again, works with their own cell line, so there are some tweaks to it, and we try to also collaborate closely with our customers to make sure that the scaffold really fits their needs, and we do the adjustments on our end with the scaffolds, that everything works smoothly on their end.
Wow, excellent. I mean, one of the challenges also you were talking about is that, you're a startup in a developing ecosystem because your key customers are also startups themselves. So what are some of the challenges and the opportunities that comes with essentially working in such a new field with startups?
Yeah. So let me start with the challenges and then I come to the upsides. So as you mentioned, so there are also startups and especially nowadays where it's difficult to raise funds, for example, sometimes they're limited in terms of budget, or they cannot decide as quickly to spend 50, 100K on a pilot project as it might be a lot easier if you collaborate with big corporates. On the other hand, and that's something we find super exciting to work with startups, is that they're very quick in decisions. So if they want to try something, it's a very quick and fast feedback loop we get and we can profit from. And then also the ecosystem as a whole, it's rapidly growing, it's developing. So it gives us the chance to grow with an ecosystem that is growing, and we don't have to fight for market shares in an already super established market.
And right now, do you have other players in Switzerland with whom you have to compete on this?
In Switzerland, the whole community is quite small. We don't have really competition within Switzerland in terms of scaffolds, but we're super happy that there is other players that also do cultivated meat. For example, Mira Internationals, they're growing meat in a very exciting bioreactor. And then there is also the Cultured Hub, which is a joint venture between Migros, Bühler and Givaudan in Kemptal, and they have a huge facility where they support startups to do the first scale up of the process. So that's on the meat side, and then overall in cellular agriculture, there is also startups like Fruit Brewer who produce chocolate from plant-based cell culture, or cultivated biosciences that use precision fermentation to make fats.
Wow, the future of food is looking very bright and very, very different.
Yeah, but it's super cool also to see this happen in Switzerland, right? Have Switzerland continuously as a hub for food innovation. It's cool to see.
Definitely. Earlier, it was also the entire topic of cultivated meats that was being, challenged by opponents. And now opponents are, challenging this whole industry as to whether it's possible to scale and enter into mass markets. So what would be your inputs regarding these concerns?
Yeah, so challengers are usually good, right? Because they point on where more work is needed, and it also attracts new startups or new players to help resolving these challenges.
Yes.
For example, like we try to do that. I think overall it's also, again, a sign of fear. So usually they don't know the process that is behind it, or they're scared that the cultivated meat industry is now taking away work from, for example, farmers, that they are not allowed to grow animals anymore. I think if we can convey them the message on how we grow the cells, and also show them the numbers on how rapidly the population is growing and how much more meat we need in the future, then like it's easy to see that with the cultivated, even if we grow very fast, we can just buffer a bit of that growth. We will not be able, or that's not our goal, to take anyone's part. And then there is also a lot of initiatives that really try to integrate the farmers into the whole system, either by growing plant-based materials which are needed, for example, for the scaffolds, or also integrating cultivation facilities into farms. So there's a lot of exciting projects coming up.
That's great.
Well.
It's nice to hear that there's that support initiative to help also farmers transform what they're doing and make this possible.
Absolutely, and I think it's also very important because we cannot do without them, right? It's really crucial to have them on board.
It's also, getting headwinds from certain governments. For example, in Texas banned cultivated meats before even being approved. So why do you think that happened?
Yeah, again, it's like similar, right? People are very scared of, like, for example, that the tradition of food is being endangered. There is also horror stories going around on what cultivated meat does and doesn't do. Again, I think if we manage to really educate the society on how we do it and be very transparent on the process, then we can hopefully convince a lot of people that we're trying to do something for the good and not for the bad. Yeah.
And how would you say that cultivated meats would compare to, let's say, consuming processed meats? Because for processed meats, there's a lot of research and known information that it can be cancerous, not so good for your health. Where do you think like cultivated meats stands in terms of health concerns?
In the end, it's very, like, from the process side, it's very similar to normal or conventional meat. So we also have like some cell mass, and then it really depends on what you add in there, right? If you have a sausage with a lot of additives, which are also not good in conventional sausages, it will also not good with cultivated meat. If you grow like something like a lean fillet, then it's
right.
And also, like, you don't have the additives, but you also don't have it in conventional farming. I think that the tweak that we can do in cultivated meat is that we can control very tightly what's in the media, so in this nutritious sauce that the cells are swimming in. And by that, it can also be controlled, for example, what kind of fats that are accumulated in the cells. So on that end, if at all, we can have like a positive effect in cultivated meat.
That's great because, a lot of the concerns with just meat in general is also it could be like high for your cholesterol or so on, but then you can, in fact, control and regulate that with your processes.
Yeah, absolutely. At least to a certain extent, yeah.
All right. Nicole, Sallea has also, got some really exciting support from participants like VentureKick, like you had won a 150,000 francs in grant. How have these funds been used so far?
Yeah, VentureKick has been very important for us. It enabled us to also pay Anna a salary. So our third co-founder. It's also one of the first fundings we got that we could use very flexible also in the business development. Before that, we got a lot of grants, which were also important, but they were all or mostly related to the science. And really getting a funding that is targeted towards the business side was very helpful. And then on top of that, it also gave us the opportunity to apply for the Inno Booster from Gebert Rüff Foundation, which is really helping us now to work on that integration of the scaffolds into the bioreactor, which is one of the key milestones we have for next year, actually.
That's cool. They're doing excellent work in supporting really innovative tech. So happy to hear that.
Absolutely.
And also you mentioned you're currently fundraising a round of 2.2 million. How is that going?
Yeah, it's going quite well. So we hope that fingers crossed, that we can sign within the next 2 or 3 weeks if everything goes right. So at the moment, the lawyers are preparing all the legal documents. Yeah.
Really exciting. Touch wood.
In the last steps. Yeah.
Would be happy to see that happen as well soon. Yes. So, I mean, with all this innovative tech on your hands, what's next for the team at Sallea?
So with the round, we will definitely be growing. We have some exciting hires coming up in the next couple of months to expand our team with different kind of know-how and complement our backgrounds even further. Yes. Yeah, and then we have like important milestones to hit as well.
Great. And what are these next specific, let's say, goals and milestones that you would like to achieve in the coming future, apart from the fundraising, of course?
Yeah, so for this year, we drive very much towards food-grade production. At the moment, we're still producing in a normal chemistry lab, but towards the end of the year, we should have all the steps at the food-grade level. And then for next year, the big part will be this integration of the scaffold into the bioreactor, such that we can prove that dynamic cell cultivation is possible on the scaffolds. And then one step further, we really want to make sure that we have the first contracts with customers. That's pilot projects, but also hopefully first manufacturing contracts.
And how difficult is it to also pass certain regulations and get all the certifications to be able to do a food grade production?
It's something we are deeply investigating at the moment. Cultivated meat as an end product, it runs under the novel food regulations. So it's quite a tedious process, which I think is a good thing, right? We want to make sure that the food that is on our plate is actually non-toxic and we can just eat it without any concerns. So it's good that these are very rigorous regulations that new foods have to pass. That's for the end product. For our scaffold itself, we make sure that we only use standard food processing techniques. So it looks like we don't have to go for the scaffold itself through the novel food regulations. Our customers that use our scaffolds then will have to pass the whole product through a novel foods regulation. Yeah.
Understood. And what's next for you, Nicole, as an individual contributing to the team, also on other goals you may have?
Yeah, so in the framework of Sallea, I'm super excited to grow the team, to learn also how to collaborate with the bigger team, to structure everything, to make sure everyone is happy in the team and can work at its best. So that's my biggest goals, I think, for the next couple of weeks and months. Yeah, to integrate everyone smoothly into the process.
Great. One question we always ask our guests is to provide also some recommendations, any books, gadgets, podcasts, resources, anything that you think was very useful for you in your entrepreneurial journey that you would like to share with the listeners?
I have 2 kids at home, so the time I have to read is being Pippi Longstrumpf or Carlson vom Dach or something in that direction. Can give you a whole range of recommendation on kids' books. Limited in terms of reading time for myself, unfortunately, at the moment. I have a full list, for example, on why we sleep, books that I want to read, but it's
I think they're super useful because a lot of founders are also parents and they're also trying to juggle their personal lives and make sure they have like a good well-being set out for themselves.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right. So basically, the Why You Sleep book is one of the recommendations.
I mean, it's on my plate. I hope I can give it to you as a recommendation, maybe in some next podcast.
Okay. All right. So the last segment is basically rapid fire questions. I'll just ask you a few questions and just to get to know you a bit. Are you ready for it?
Sure. Absolutely.
All right. So we know from our research that you also taught some exercise classes at the Academic Sports Association of Zurich. So we have to ask, what does your fitness routine look like nowadays?
So I'm teaching between 5 and 10 classes per week.
Wow.
In different different types of group fitness sports. Yeah.
And that's also part of your own fitness. I mean, when you're teaching 5-10 classes, you're as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm doing it myself. So yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. And if you had to choose researcher or entrepreneur?
Entrepreneur.
What's your favorite vegan meat alternative that we can find in the supermarket?
Planted.
That's a lot of people's favorite. Yeah. What's your favorite thing about your co-founding team?
The complementary aspects of the team. Yeah.
Great. Well, that was it. That was our episode for today. Thank you so much for your answers. I really enjoyed speaking with you and also learning some new things. And I wish you all the best and really great successes for your company.
Thanks a lot. And thanks for having me today. It was amazing.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.